The alarm hit before I even opened my eyes. Red light filled the bunk room, and the ship's voice called out that a pirate cruiser had dropped out of warp on our flank. My name is Daniel Foley, gunnery sergeant on the salvage tug Verdant Accord, and 3 days earlier, I had said something at a dinner table that made half the crew look at me like I was a stranger. Now that same crew was screaming my name down the corridor, because when the shooting starts, nobody cares what species you are. They only care if you can shoot straight. I ran to the gunnery station with my boots half-laced. Grace Whitmore, our pilot, was already strapped in, her hands shaking over the controls. She was zealous, skin pale blue, eyes wide with something close to panic. "Talk to me," I said, sliding into the gunner seat beside her. "Cruiser is closing fast. They are not asking for surrender. They are just closing." Then we don't wait for them to ask. The ship shuddered as the first shot from the enemy cruiser passed close enough to rattle the hull plating. I brought the targeting screen online and felt my pulse settle, the way it always did once the danger stopped being an idea and became a job. 3 days ago, at that dinner table, Ensign Ket Varro had asked me a question meant as a joke. He wanted to know how many people I had stopped in my years of service, the way you might ask a friend how many fish he caught on a good weekend. I had answered honestly. I told him about the wars my people fought against each other, long before we ever met another species among the stars. I told him the numbers were so large that no single soldier could carry them alone, that entire generations were shaped by conflict before humanity ever earned its place among the stars. The table had gone silent that night. Nobody laughed again for the rest of the evening. Now that silence felt far away, because the cruiser was firing again, and the tug rocked hard to one side. "Shields at 70%, Grace called out. "Daniel, I need a plan, not history." "Working on it," I said, and I meant it. The pirate ship was fast, faster than our old tug, but it was not built for a real fight. It was built to frighten cargo crews into giving up their goods without a struggle. I had spent years learning the difference between a ship built to scare people and a ship built to survive a real exchange. This one had thin plating near the engine core, a common weakness in vessels retrofitted from old freighters. I marked the spot on my screen and waited for the right angle. "Grace, bring us around. Slow arc. Let them think we are trying to run." That is exactly what we are trying to do. Not anymore. She trusted me, even though 3 days earlier she had asked me if the crew should really let a human near the weapons, unsupervised, after learning what my kind was capable of doing to itself. I remembered the look on her face when she asked that question. It was not anger, it was fear, the kind that comes from learning something true and uncomfortable about a person you thought you understood. I had told her that fear was fair, that she had every right to feel it, but that fear should not be the only thing she remembered about me. Now here she was, arcing the ship exactly where I asked, because in the space of 3 days, she had decided that trust mattered more than fear. The tug turned, and the pirate cruiser followed, exactly as I hoped it would. Predators always follow something that looks like it is running. "Steady," I said, more to myself than to her. The cruiser lined up behind us, confident, closing the gap fast. I watched the thin plating near their engine core drift into my sights. My hands did not shake. They never did in moments like this, not because I was brave, but because years of training had taught my body to separate fear from function. I fired once, a single precise strike, aimed only at disabling their engine, nothing more. The goal was never to destroy them. The goal was to stop the threat and walk away with everyone alive, on both sides if possible. The cruiser's engine flared bright, then dimmed, then went dark. Their forward motion slowed until they drifted, powerless, a few hundred meters from our hull. "Engine down," Grace said, disbelief in her voice. "You disabled them in one shot. That's the idea. Dead ships can't hurt you. Neither can crews who chose piracy because they had no better options and now regret it." The bridge went quiet for a moment. The kind of quiet that follows a held breath finally released. Then Kest, our Grelac security officer, came over the comm, his voice rough with static. "Daniel, they are hailing us. No weapons fire. They are asking for a tow." I almost laughed. 3 days ago, this same crew had looked at me with something close to dread after hearing about the wars of old Earth. Now the very same instincts that history built into my people had just saved every one of them, and instead of destroying an enemy, I had simply taken away their ability to cause harm and left the choice of what happened next in their hands. "Tell them we'll consider it," I said, after they surrender their weapons and agree to be handed over to the nearest patrol station. "They're agreeing," Kest said, surprise clear in his voice. "Fast." Grace turned to look at me, her pale blue eyes studying my face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You could have destroyed them. You had the shot." "I know." "Why didn't you?" I thought about how to answer that honestly, the same way I had answered Ket Varro's question 3 nights before. Because winning a fight and needing to end a life are 2 different things, and my people spent too many centuries confusing them. I've spent my whole career trying to remember the difference, especially in the moments when it would be easiest to forget. She did not say anything right away. She just nodded slowly, the kind of nod that meant something had shifted in how she saw me. Later, after the pirate crew had been secured and handed off to a patrol station that intercepted our distress call, the mess hall filled again with the same crew from 3 nights earlier. Nobody was laughing this time either, but the silence felt different. It felt earned instead of afraid. Ket Varro sat across from me, turning a cup between his hands, the way I remembered doing myself the night I answered his question. "I wanted to apologize," he said, "for asking what I asked. As a joke. I didn't think about what it might mean to actually answer." "You don't owe me an apology," I said. "It was a fair question. I just gave you a fuller answer than you expected. Today you had every reason to end that fight completely, and you didn't. I keep thinking about that, about the difference between what you told us and what you actually do." I considered his words for a moment before answering. History is not the same as choice. My people made history that we are not proud of, generation after generation, mistake after mistake, until we nearly ran out of a planet to make those mistakes on. But every one of us gets to decide, every single day, whether we repeat that history or whether we finally learn from it. Today I chose to disable a threat instead of ending it, because that choice was available to me, and I took it. That is the only kind of answer that actually means anything. Not the number from the past, but the choice made right now. Grace, sitting a few seats down, spoke up quietly. "That's the part nobody explained to us before. We only ever hear about what humans did to each other, never about what you're trying to become because of it." "Most of us don't talk about it much," I admitted. "It's not exactly comfortable conversation over dinner." A small laugh moved around the table, the first real one since that night 3 days earlier. It was not loud, and it was not long, but it was honest. And after everything that had happened, honest felt like enough. Kest raised his cup toward me, a gesture I had learned meant respect among his people. 11 pirates felt like a heavy number to me once. I understand now that numbers were never really the point of your answer that night. "No," I agreed. "They never were." Outside the viewport, the stars continued their slow drift past the hull, indifferent to everything that had happened aboard our small ship that day. Somewhere behind us, a disabled cruiser limped toward a patrol station, its crew alive to face whatever consequences awaited them, rather than facing none at all. Ahead of us, the open dark of space waited, patient and endless, the same as it always had. I finished my drink and looked around the table at faces that, 3 days ago, had studied me with quiet unease. Tonight, they studied me differently, not with fear, and not quite with full understanding either, but with something close to trust. It was not the kind of trust that comes from forgetting the past. It was the kind that comes from watching someone choose, again and again, not to be defined by it, That, I had come to learn, was the real answer to the question Ket Varro had asked as a joke that first night. Not a number, and not a history lesson, but a choice, made over and over, every single day, by everyone aboard that ship, human or otherwise, who decided that surviving the past was only the beginning, and that becoming something better was the part that actually mattered.